All right, everybody. Welcome to Netcapital's demo day for the month of July. Thanks for all the attendees who are here right off the bat. I'm going to give everyone a minute to get in and get their audio and video all set up. Make sure everyone can hear. Don't want to miss anything. Great attendance today. We've got 4 great companies who are going to be presenting. So hopefully you guys can stick all the way through. Looks like we have a critical mass of people in the door, so we can get started. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Rob Burnett. I'm the CEO at the Netcapital Funding Portal. So my job is to help all these companies list on Netcapital and raise capital and help all you investors connect with these companies and make investments as and when appropriate. Today, we're joined by 4 great companies, EarthGrid, Cash, Power Hero, and Absinthia. They're going to be presenting in that order. We're going to get quick pitches from each one. They'll pitch for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So for everyone here listening, there's a Q&A function down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have questions for these entrepreneurs, please put your questions in there, and we'll ask them at the end of the pitch, and we'll make sure we get a nice little back and forth with each of these entrepreneurs so we can dig into their companies and learn more about it. If any of you are watching this recording, because we are recording and we're going to post this on our social media channels. If you're watching a recording after the fact and you have questions for these entrepreneurs, you can always post a question on their Netcapital discussion board. I know all of them will get back to you just as soon as they can. And that's a great way to engage, even if you're watching this not real time. And let me check my notes, make sure we've got everything going good. I think we're good. All right, well, first off, we're gonna introduce Troy Helming with EarthGrid. Troy, why don't you take us away?
Great. And if you could enable screen sharing, that would be awesome. So I can go through a few slides, and I'll go quickly because I know there'll probably be a lot of questions. All right, here we go. Should be good to go. Yes. So Troy Helming, founder and CEO of EarthGrid. I'm going to go fast. So a little bit about me. I have had multiple companies with 6 exits, 4 meaningful, including 2 companies that became unicorns, meaning they became worth more than $1 billion of value. I started the first wind farm company almost 30 years ago, and it became the largest wind energy developer in the United States in 2017, switched to solar, and now EarthGrid. Also, I'm an elite athlete, competed on American Ninja Warrior, but EarthGrid's trying to solve problems of the grid. We all know the grid needs to be upgraded. And the thing that really drives me the most is this statistic in blue: 80% or 4 out of 5 wind and solar projects never get built. They get abandoned or canceled because of our antiquated grid. We need more transmission lines to unlock a lot of cheap wind and solar power. Also, overhead power lines are causing most of the fires in California, Oregon, Texas, Canada, Australia, and so forth. We need to put this stuff underground to make it 9 times more reliable than overhead lines with 10 times fewer truck rolls, according to utility data from the US. But historically, it's been 7 to 20 times more expensive to bury power lines and fiber lines and so forth. Until now, thanks to EarthGrid. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But check this out. Europe's grid is 80% underground, and we are only 8% in the US and Canada. Most people would not guess that we're 10 times worse. A lot of work to do. I'm going to show this quick 30-second video of a prototype we built roughly 4 years ago, and then I'll tell you what we're doing now.
So imagine a robot with 10 lightsabers on the front, just kind of vaporizing through all the rock and soil, and then a Mandalorian jetpack on the back, blowing out all the little bits of rock, like cornflake-sized bits of rock, and it can go so fast and so much cheaper than anything else out there. It's the power grid, transmission lines, it's our water pipelines, fiber. There's so many communities that don't have access to high-speed bandwidth.
So like I said, that was a while ago. Last year, we built the first ever plasma excavator, first in the world, had 1 torch on it. Now we've added 2 torches, and 1 + 1 torch doesn't equal 2. The 2 torches help each other. We thought it'd be at least 2.5, but in testing now for a number of weeks, 1 + 1 is 3.5. We call it the synergy bonus. But basically how it works is we take air, which is free, we pass it over lightning in that tube, and it superheats the air to a plasma of up to 27,000 degrees. And that will vaporize, spallate, or melt.
I've got a problem that I'm pretty...
Oops. melt just about anything there. So allows us to go faster and cheaper. So that's excavating. This machine is a tunneling machine. We're not going to sell the machines. Our business model is to, we have a sense of humor. So Boom and Badass are our products. Boom, build, own, operate, and maintain. That's like like a real estate developer would build a building and they'll either lease it out and they retain ownership of it and they lease it out, or they sell it, make a profit. That's basically what we're doing. We'll dig a ditch, dig a tunnel, we'll own it, lease it out, or charge a toll on the commodities, or we'll sell it for a profit. So we have some fun acronyms. But the plasma tunneling and plasma excavation means we're up to 10 times lower cost, up to 100 times faster on the boring, and we can be faster on permitting. You see some of the examples here on the numbers, and speed up to 1,000 meters a day, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 meters a day. That's a kilometer per day, whereas the world record is, depending on the type of rock, is anywhere from 10 to 30, 40, depending on the rock. We have lots of patents, over 152 patent claims, over 1,000 trade secrets, about a 4 to 5 year defensive moat. Here's a test tunnel we created a few months ago. We did this with one torch. It took us 30 hours and we removed 40 cubic meters of material. Imagine what we can do now with 2 torches or our 6-torch machine, which we're building now here in Richmond, California, and we're going to fire it up for the first time in about 2 weeks. Market's huge, it's trillions, you all know that, I'll skip that. I'll just show one of the quick patent claims is everybody else bores circles, and we're boring a Roman arch shape. Why? Well, you have a square at the bottom, so there's more usable space for like trains or, 2-lane highway or 2.5 meter or 1 meter diameter. There's room for more infrastructure, power, fiber, water, and freight moving around with robots in tubes. So I'll just wrap up here. I'll skip through that. We signed a big multi-billion-dollar joint venture deal last fall. So we're going to see significant revenue from that starting next year. We are approved as a utility in 46 states, which gives us basically guaranteed access to the roadways to put our tunnels under any road because we're a regulated utility, telecommunications utility in those states. So that's a big deal. Amazing team with a Nobel Prize winner and federal and state energy and utility regulators on our advisory board. Here's a couple more pictures of our test tunnel. Our revenue, we expect to IPO in 2026 or 27. We're talking to some big Wall Street banks about taking us public, and we're on track to do that. We've raised $50 million so far as a company, and that includes $3.3 million on the Netcapital platform in our last round at $60 million pre-money. Now we're at a $75 million pre-money. That's it. It's world-changing tech. Help us change the world.
Thanks, Troy. Sorry. So a ton to, sorry, God, I'm drinking tea over here. Ton to unpack there. And tons of good questions, but let me rapid fire some at you real quick, because obviously we need more than 10 minutes to unpack everything you got going on. Talk to me first about how did you were in clean tech before. How did you come up with this solution? Where did the technology come from? How did you kind of decide that this was going to be your next company?
So in 2016, we had a solar farm that we had to reduce the size of it by 75% because the grid couldn't handle it. So we were drowning our tears over beers in San Francisco, and one of my solar engineers, he's a former Navy SEAL, bragging to his girlfriend about how his SEAL team used to use a plasma cutting torch to go underwater and cut through the side of enemy ships to take over the ship. We're like, dude, you're amazing. Anyway, and so that night I popped out of bed. I was like, huh. He said it was 20,000 degrees. He could take his arm off. Wonder if that could go through rock. Couldn't stop thinking about it, up all night. Anyway, long story short, hired a big engineering firm to do feasibility study, and they said, yes, it'll work. 2, no one is doing this, but the Los Alamos National Lab, government lab, tested this in the 1970s. Number 3, you can go really fast. And number 4, here's your operating costs. And then I was like, wow, this sounds like a good business opportunity.
Cool. And speaking of the business opportunity, you mentioned, that we're basically 8-10 times worse than Europe. Why do they have so many more underground utilities than we do in the US?
Yeah, it's not anything magical or special. They just decided to spend the money, invest to make their infrastructure more resilient. There's, some potentially more government regulation there. But also in the US, we have this perverse incentive for utilities to not do it, because every time there's a tornado or an ice storm or a hurricane or fires or whatever that damage these lines, they get to charge us, the ratepayers, to go back and rebuild
to go
everything.
fix them.
Yeah.
So you've raised 50 million so far, and it's awesome that 3.3 million of that has come from Netcapital. With this next raise, what are the use of proceeds going towards? Kind of what, when the investors who are listening today contribute, what are they helping you do?
Yeah, it's to build this bad boy here. We were able to afford 6 plasma torches. We want to build 11 on this machine to get it up to 2.5 meters, 8 feet in diameter, to have plenty of room for lots of infrastructure, including freight. And so with 6 torches, we know we can do about 1.5 meters. We want to make it a bigger system. So that plus extend our runway a bit longer are the 2 uses.
Great, and we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. So if anyone's got any final questions for Troy, please throw them in. But in the meantime, Troy, at this point, who do you consider your competitors?
Yeah, the thousands of companies out there using conventional tunnel boring machines and horizontal directional drilling. People sometimes ask Elon Musk, the boring company. They actually, are communicating with us. We gave them a couple of proposals because we are really the only technology that can go quickly through hard rock. But we don't know that there's anybody out there that can compete with us on cost or speed.
And then what's the kind of what I know you have big plans talking about going public. What's the go-to-market strategy right now? Talk to us about kind of what does the next year look like in terms of new customers and things like that.
Yeah, we made about $500,000 of revenue already with our first machine. Our 6 torch machine will be able to make a lot more, but customers include data centers who need power, and they are looking to us to basically dig them a tunnel or an underground extension cord from where they want to build their data center or expand an existing data center for all the AI and all the compute that's needed, and connect that data center with a solar farm or a wind farm that can't build anything yet because there's no capacity on the grid. So we're basically the shortcut to do that. A second use case would be utilities that want to bury power lines or fiber. And a third use case would be construction companies that are struggling with, hard rock or difficult geologies where we can reduce geological risk, reduce cost, and speed things up.
Great. And we have just 2 more quick questions that came in from the audience. So the first is, can you elaborate a little bit more on the big joint ventures you mentioned?
Yeah, sure. It's a global infrastructure fund that wants to fund it's $7 billion. And we signed that deal. It's a binding joint venture deal that was signed last fall. And they want to fund 16 tunnel projects in North America, Canada, and the US for power, fiber, and water. And so the joint venture has signed this contract to hire EarthGrid to develop and build those projects. We hope to start construction on that. We've already started development, but we hope to start construction next year on the first 3 of the 16 projects. And then EarthGrid, because it's a JV, EarthGrid will also own a minority 30% share of all of those tunnel projects. So any distributions of profits will get 30% of those.
Great. And I noticed a couple, really appreciate that, Troy. A couple more questions came in. We're up on time. Troy, did you have to leave early? Do I remember that?
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right. What we'll do is we're going to circle back at the end for any extra questions. So please keep sending them in. I want to make sure each company has enough time, but we'll keep talking about them.
Yep, and I'll also mention we're working with Power Hero and other EV charging solutions to get more power out there into the world for the electrification of everything.
I was going to mention that as well. My understanding is we got 2 companies here that are both raising that capital and they're working together with EarthGrid and Power Hero. So love to see that collaboration. Esmond, maybe you can elaborate on that when it's your time here in a bit. But let's keep the ball rolling. So Eli, you're up next. Why don't you come in here and discuss cash?
Hi, Rob. Hi, everyone. Of course, my pleasure. Let me just share a quick video for our viewers so that they can take an idea of what catch is. I'm going to play that back right now. All right, let me move it now to my deck. Can you guys see my deck?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm Eli Farhad, founder of Catch Digital ID. A little bit about myself. I worked in finance for 20 years. I'm an identity theft victim twice. Last year was the last time. So identity for me is really personal and there's no plan B. Like I really want to get this product commercialized. So what we're building essentially is a secure face ID, so to speak, that uses your hand instead of your face and works on any smart device, not just some iPhones. And the goal here is to get rid of credentials. What's happening today is that whenever there's a data breach, hackers are using our personal information and credentials to hack our accounts and devices. And we're very proud that we've built a technology, first time ever, that can protect someone's identity no matter how much you're compromised, whether it's your device, whether it's your information, or whether it's your biometric. Your identity will remain safe with Catch. This is really very beautiful and very powerful. Let's start with the team. I'm a co-founder. My co-founder actually is a serial entrepreneur. He had several security startups, one exit. Combined, we have 4 exits as a team. Nitin Gaur spent 22 years at IBM. He's a veteran in cybersecurity. Now he's the head of State Street Digital Assets Division. He has a wealth of information in infrastructure development and software development. Edward Bomver spent 25 years in combined experience at Raytheon and Symantec. He's also a security leader in infrastructure and software. And Jonathan Nystrom is our go-to sales market specialist. He also has 3 successful exits with 15 years experience at Ernst & Young. So our vision with Catch is that we want to bring back trust to digital economies because we believe if we're able to do that, we can unlock so much value there. There's so many things you can do online that today you do in person. So we can save so much on the environment, on the economy, expand the digital economies. There are so many synergies that can, play hand in hand if you can create a digital trustful world. But here's a big problem. 80% of fraud stems from stolen ID credentials. This is a global figure. That means for businesses, they have to keep managing credentials, and that is a huge cost and pain. For the consumers, the friction of passwords, multi-factor authentication or 2-factor authentication, or even the friction of CAPTCHAs is just insanely destroying the value of identification. And for hackers, they love those credentials and they can use them very well. It's a great vehicle to hack our accounts and defraud us. Identity theft tripled in 3 years. Between 2018 and 2021, we have several industries struggling with this, from financial services to healthcare, insurance, and definitely government. The government printed $5 trillion during COVID. $1 trillion was just gone on fraud. Just think about those numbers, $1 trillion. So managing credentials, let's zoom in a little bit more here, is really a big cost and pain for enterprise. So let's go over some numbers. 40% of calls are related to passwords at the help desk. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to verify a client's identity. And it costs $70 to reset a password on an enterprise level. So there's a huge cost pain, and we can eliminate all that using our technology and product. Not just that, these enterprises are facing a cost of around $3,000 to $4,000, depends on the organization size. That's the annual cyber spend per employee. That's also additional to anything else they pay on top. And so the industry is losing about $56 billion for fraud losses every year. We can eliminate that with Catch. So what is our solution? We're actually replacing credentials and your palm becomes your password. And the reason why we're doing this, because we can provide security and privacy, a frictionless verification that works on any device. Why this is important? Because whenever a business uses our solution, they have access to all the devices, not just certain devices. And that was one of the preconditions we put ourselves before developing anything in the technology, is that we have to create convenience and security on any device, not just certain devices, so that everyone can have access to their accounts like passwords do. But what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is our biocentric technology. That's a fancy way to say that we're connecting your identity to your hand, not to the device. Because today, the device is the risk. This is where hackers want to get. They want to get your device, get your files, access them, and use them to hack your accounts. And so the technology is immune to threats of compromised devices, compromised information like your social security number, your first name and last name, email, any kind of information about you, and fake biometrics that can take so many shapes and forms. In this image, you can see a printed fingerprint that's silicon made on a 3D printer, but also the emerging threat is generative AI. Generative AI can today recreate any biometric, and this is where we add so much value. So when we replace traditional credentials with a hand scan, we're eliminating MFA from consumers' life. We're eliminating badges from hospitals and medical centers. We're eliminating QR codes from ticketing agencies. We're eliminating all this friction with just a hand scan. So it takes few seconds, and this hand scan allows you to authorize who can use your information. Let me just go over a quick example. If a bank wants to open a credit account for you, they would need that signature from you before they use your information. And that is very, very powerful. And this is how I got hacked, by the way. So every hand is unique. Even identical twins have identical faces, but they have different hands. Also, hands are very beautiful, but I'll go over that in a separate slide. So in this example, you launch your bank app, you scan your hand, no credentials, you're in. Why we're better than Face ID Clear? By the way, Face ID was hacked. We have demonstration videos to show that. Clear at the airport or Amazon. Why we're better? Because we are available on any device. These technologies, while they sound like a good option, they have limited convenience, because if the device is not there, you can't use them. Also, that device is costing them money and time to develop, deploy, and maintain. And so that additional cost, they have to add it to their pricing model, which makes it really expensive for businesses and small businesses to adopt them. I can throw a quick example. Amazon Go, they shelved off their technology of automatic checkout. Not even one business purchased it because it was extremely cost intensive and expensive to deploy and even buy. So why do we use the hand? The hand has so many advantages. You know, if you're passing by the streets, cameras can capture your face. We call that a passive biometric. While the hand is a voluntary biometric, no one can capture it. It also does not discriminate against gender, race, or color. This is also another technical reason why the hand is better. So people who have darker skins tend to have darker faces, and AI really struggles with whenever the face is not well lit. The hand, on the other hand, it's funny I said, has a bright palm. Every one of us, no matter what the race you're coming from or any kind of skin color you have a bright palm. And that bright palm gives so much advantage on the accuracy of AI detection and also identification. It is also private and user-friendly, so that's also why we use the hand. So we've added also more, I would say, security stops to make sure that you're giving up your biometric and you're really worry-free about that. We are also detecting a lot of other biological markers, and pulse, for example, detection is one of them. The reason why I want to do that, we want to make sure you're sober, you're alive, you're dead. I get this question a lot. What if someone cut my hand? Are they going to access my account? The answer is no, because we can detect that your hand is dead, and then it's not going to work anymore. Our IP attorney is really impressed with the technology. He believes that it is unique. It's going to change the landscape in cybersecurity. So who are our competitors? Quickly, we're going to go over Amazon One, which is the closest thing to us. Amazon One is a very good technology. It is hackable, but not easy to hack, to be honest. The thing is that it requires this special hardware, so the convenience is limited. Also, their hardware incorporates infrared camera. So the infrared camera doesn't work in the sunlight or in a heated environment, so it's a no-no. It only works in an indoor setup. So we're the only.
Hey, Eli, I don't want to cut you off, but just want to make sure that we're running up on time here. So there's a couple questions from the crowd. Maybe take one more minute to wrap up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the market is huge. We're talking about 80 billion in the United States. It's growing at 17% compounded annual growth rate. By 2030, it's going to be $200 billion. So that's really great. We're engaging with clients through webinars, special focus groups, and we're going direct sales as well. Our first market now is digital banks, Web3 companies, and fintech companies. We've got really great testimonials, and we're going to go over these. Our company was recognized by top-tier organizations like the FDIC, Visa, and the University of California, where we conducted research and development. We have multiple LOIs from B2B customers, and this is how we make money. So it's a hybrid system. It's pay-as-you-go and a SaaS model. And we project our revenues in the first 4 years to be a cumulative revenue of $15 million. This is how we're going to use the money. About 40% of the money raised would be for development. So right now we've beta tested with a lot of potential clients. They're very happy with the results. We want to commercialize it, have a product in place, and start a production version. That's the goal of raising 500K. It's a runway for 12 months. And yeah, this is all about it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Eli. Really appreciate that. Thanks for walking us through all that. For now, if anyone's got any questions for Eli and Cash, please put them in. We'll circle back to them at the end. But that was a really great and detailed presentation. Really appreciate that. And all this information is also available on Cash's Netcapital page.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eli. Esmond, I think you're up next with Power Hero. You want to come on in? And Esmond, just so you know, you're muted and off camera so far. So. There we go.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm not as fast as Troy, but I won't take too long. So let me get started. I'm not going to be talking about Power Hero in detail because I expect the investors to be going to our campaigns page as well as our website, powerhero.com. So, but I do want to share with you some stuff that is not reflected in those two sources, and hopefully that will help you have a better understanding of what we're doing and the way we operate the company. So first of all, the key thing here is talking about just to present to you how big this opportunity is. It's commonly advertised in the magazines and everywhere. That's a huge 500 billion global EV market, and we're into the charging of that and EVs are growing very, very fast, being adopted very fast, and charging just dovetails that. So we're there just picking up the pieces and providing charging. And this is our product portfolio. The key thing about what we do is that we leverage existing infrastructure. So we don't we use ordinary 110 volt sockets that you find anywhere in your home. And for buildings, apartment buildings, it's really important because 70% of the apartment buildings in America are over 20 years old, and they were not designed for EV charging. So they don't have the 240 volt circuits, and they also, even if they they would have a hard time trying to satisfy all the EV owners there. And on top of that, don't forget that when these apartment buildings want to provide charging, they have to get the utility companies to come in and put a substation because they don't have enough power coming into the building in the first place. And they can't afford to do that if you only happen to have one tenant that requires EV charging. Because remember, this market is spread out, so it's one building is not going to have suddenly half of its population going to charging. So they have this issue of not being able to provide charging to the incremental people that comes into the building. So that's a big deal. And I just want to talk quickly about the patents that we have and why it's so important. It's because we believe that and this has been around since the biblical times. When they talk about building a house on a rock, so that it's rather than building it on sand, and that sand can sink and so on and so forth. If you build your house on a rock, you can withstand the torrential rain, flooding, and your house is probably still stand. So we believe in this company, and this is what I've done in prior startups before. You start off by building the foundation, just like Troy, started working on his design. That's what we did. We spent years building our foundation of 10 patents. So we have 10 patents approved, over 250 approved claims, and we have 18 more pending. So this is a strong foundation to build upon. And that's from there we started building products. And And we don't mention AirQ in our website or Netcapital because AirQ was initially a layer to provide access to our technology. But AirQ is really an app that's a mixture of Google and OpenTable. Google, as everybody knows, is a search engine. OpenTable may not be as familiar, but people who like to eat out know that you can search and make reservations for your favorite restaurants. But not all restaurants are there. And when OpenTable started out, they didn't have the kind of directory that they now have. And so that chicken and egg situation. But the people, the diners themselves are contributing to that database. And AirQ is something like that. We allow you to search for power. And also, if you happen to find a power outlet, you can add that to the directory and everybody benefits. Once we have a directory of all these outlets, power outlets, we can then allow the host to monetize that, make that outlet reservable. And that's where ePort comes in. It's a plug and play device. You plug into the socket and it becomes reservable. That's great for people like for companies like Starbucks, because when you go to Starbucks, you have a few people who just hog all the outlets. They buy a cup of coffee, they're there for 4 hours. And so the ePort allows you to monetize the socket. And from there, we will introduce a Cameo, which will monetize the 2 million level 2 chargers that's across America in people's homes. So just imagine, instead of the 150,000 chargers that's out there now, you will have 2 million across the country. And that does a lot to reducing range anxiety. And then we'll be introducing our Power Pack, which is for apartment residents. That's where you get 240 fast charging from 110 volt circuits. So building owners save money. And apartment tenants, right now, 80% of the EVs are owned by people who have houses. So the apartment dwellers are really basically shut out of the EV market. And no government can meet their objectives for arresting climate change, or they cannot meet the EV goals, the transition goals, if you ignore these 30% of that lives in apartment buildings. And the last thing is we culminate with Ampower, which is a mobile charging station. So if you look at all that, that's really our ecosystem for finding and use power anytime, anywhere. I'll just leave it at that for now. And so let me just tell you, why do we want to have AirQ? Now, this is a very short video. It's only about 43 seconds. This is what our guys are building now. You look for, you might be on campus and you look for the nearest socket, because college students, 93% of college students own a smartphone or a laptop, and they always need power. You don't see anybody taking notes, paper notes now. It's all laptop. So if you really need power that day, pretty much every day, you can find where the nearest outlet is. And if you find an outlet that nobody knows about, you can add it to the directory, and so it becomes part of the universe. Why are we doing this? It's that we're building this to gradually bring people into the EV charging, because these seniors, so these college seniors, are going to be the first people that will adopt EVs. But so why and what is AirQ? I already talked a bit about that, but I want to point out, what is the value? Well, if you remember Waze, which is a GPS navigation system, Google bought it. So why would Google buy it when they already have their own Google Maps? Well, that's because Waze is a community-driven GPS navigation app. And that's what we're building AirQ. It's a community-driven app to search for power sources. There's more and more devices are electronics and always needing power. So the first release that we're doing is targeting at college students. And you'll understand why we're doing that. Because 92% is like fishing in a barrel, because you know where they are. And it's easier to target to people when you know where they are. And college students is right there at college. AirQ will be used to help college students find outlets on campus, also be able to access the latest things about what's happening on campus and where's the best place to eat, et cetera, et cetera. We'll also incentivize them to upload data and build a database. But more important, we're going to be incentivizing them to to also help us transition into the bigger products like Cameo and so forth. And they're going to be our future customers. So the AirQ potential as a product unto itself, if you look at what's happening on campus, and our first launch is going to be at USC, and you can see Flip was introduced in 2021. It's got 2 million users. Tap Life was just more recent as last year, and the kids there, and this is at USC, so we're following up on that by also introducing AirQ at USC. This is my second last slide, and I just want to point out that Troy is on our board. I met Troy actually at one of our webinar that Netcapital hosted, and I think Rob asked me to just quickly mention what we're doing together. Well, Troy is digging tunnels, and he's hopefully going to be digging tunnels in between the cities. And one of our patents is mobile charging. And we have, patents for autonomous vehicle. These are charging stations that are autonomous that you can call. I mentioned it as being M-Power. Well, if you can imagine, there are technologies being developed where a vehicle can charge through inductive charging in roads that are embedded with cables. So you imagine if by collaborating with EarthGrid, when they start building these tunnels, I want to be laying out these inductive cables for charging. So it will be part of a offering, and I think that'd be just immensely useful. And that's about pretty much all that we can say. And this is my last slide.
All right.
Why invest in Power
Hero?
Hero?
Yeah, sounds good.
Right. I think when I invest, I always like to know how am I going to get out. And if you had a chance to look at our website, you know that we have a lot of proven. We've proven that we can exit at a high ROI. Troy mentioned about unicorns. I've had my own unicorn, and I've had eight IPOs. And the next thing you must consider is the market. Are you in a market that's growing? EV. Everybody knows about EV. And it's going to grow for decades. We have a strong foundation. I mentioned that will allow us to weather storms, and over 250 design elements that is approved. And we have characteristics that should attract acquirers, whether it's an EV manufacturing or EV charging company, even Airbnb, because of our Cameo Airbnb implementation. And I think the last thing you might you want to consider when you make an investment is how prudent is management and cash management, because it reduces investment risk. That's my presentation.
Thanks, Esmond. And if anyone has any questions for Esmond or Power Hero, please put them in the chat, and we'll circle back to it at the end. Cynthia, I think you're our last presentation for tonight.
Yes, hello, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me share my screen. Where are we? Of course, I had it up a moment ago. My apologies.
No worries. It wouldn't be a true Zoom presentation without at least one hiccup there. There we go. We can see it now.
Right. You can see it now?
We can.
Okay, fantastic. So I am the founder and CEO of Absinthia's Bottled Spirits. We're a pioneering spirits brand, and we're celebrated for our award-winning and innovative products that are all made with organic botanicals and Napa Valley grapes. We have numerous accolades from top industry competitions and features in prestigious publications. And so we're setting new standards in quality and flavor in the spirits industry. When I started making absinthe back in 1997, and my friends started calling me Absinthia as a joke, a nickname that stuck, I never imagined there would even be an absinthe market. It had been illegal for about 85 years at that point. Absinthe was made legal in the United States in 2007 because it was scientifically proven that it was already within legal limits. There was nothing dangerous about it. It was something similar to, we'll say, like reefer madness. The wine industry in France couldn't compete with it because 90% of what was in people's glasses across all spirits, beer, and wine was absinthe. So after the ban was lifted, the economy crashed, and you can see that it took a few years for absinthe to really take off. And we are now in that nice hockey lift part. What's interesting to me about this chart is that absinthe is typically thought of as being drunk in France, Switzerland, and Prague, but the lion's share of the growth is coming in the domestic market. So there's a lot of potential in the United States. So I'll back up a minute and just explain real briefly what absinthe is. It is a distilled spirit. It's made similarly to gin, but with different botanicals. So it's gran wormwood, fennel seed, and aniseed. It must be 45 to 75%, 74% alcohol by volume. It's typically characterized by its green color and its anise flavor, and it's derived from botanicals. That it must not contain any artificial flavors or colors or sugar, and any neutral spirit can be used. We use, like I mentioned before, distilled grapes from Napa Valley, and they provide a natural sweetness to it. So it's not that harsh, bitter, neon green absinthe that you may have come across in the past. I believe that a well-crafted absinthe does not need sugar to taste good. So these are our 4 absinthes. The clear absinthe was our first product. That's our absinthe blanche, which was very popular during the absinthe ban, because if you didn't color your absinthe green, well, nobody knew it was absinthe. That product won gold in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition and in the Bartender Spirits Award. On the far left is our traditional absinthe vert, the green absinthe in the dark bottle, because we color it green with botanicals after we distill it. So the dark bottle protects it from the sun. And that won double gold, best liqueur, and best woman distiller in Sunset Magazine. We have our barrel-aged absinthe, which is rested in ex-rye oak barrels inspired by the Sazerac cocktail. And that won gold in the Bartender Spirits Award. And on the far right is our brand new absinthe blue with butterfly pea flower. That was actually inspired, you may be familiar with the Empress gin, the blue gin with the butterfly pea flower. That was a import product. And I argued with the FDA for almost 3 years before they finally acquiesced and allowed me to use butterfly pea flower in a domestic alcohol. And that won 98 points, double gold, best in class and best liqueur in LA Invitational Spirits Competition. And we just learned that it won 100 points and platinum, a perfect score in the Chilled 100 Spirits Competition. In addition, we have a line of craft mixers. They are essentially flavored simple syrups. Also, each one has won its own set of awards, and we are working on canned cocktails with both these mixers as well as the absinthes. So these are the various awards that we have won, along with the press that we have been featured in, highlighting our exceptional quality and our innovation in the world of fine spirits. So we see our competition as, yes, other absinthe producers, but also really just in the fine spirits world as a whole. So our current distribution, I'm actually in the process of relocating from California to Louisiana right now. I see a lot of potential in that market, and we are in negotiations with the states that you see below for our distribution. Our e-commerce, we were legally allowed to ship to 47 states through Bottle Nexus with a nice gross profit margin. This is our team. I have an MBA from Babson, and my undergrad is BFA from New York University. I started life as an artist, which is what drew me to absinthe in the first place. Our annual revenue for 2023 was about $135,000, and we're projected for $250,000 this year, which will make us profitable. This is our use of funds. So digital marketing is very important in this industry. There are distribution expenses that we need to cover so that we are successful in the areas where we have distribution, our inventory and our new products that we're developing, of course, a rainy day fund, and then the personnel to help bring all of this together. So why will Absenthia win the absinthe markets? We present a compelling investment opportunity in the spirits category and with really strong growth projections and a clear strategic plan. Investing in Absenthia offers the potential for extraordinary returns and a stake in redefining the absinthe markets. So we're planning a 8 to 9 figure exit by 2030. And that is my very fast, high-speed presentation.
Thanks, Cynthia, and thanks
Thank you.
everybody. Wonderful presentations. Thanks for taking the time to talk through investors. We can take a little time now to circle up on some questions that didn't get answered. And if anyone else listening has any final questions for any of the entrepreneurs, please put them in the chat here and we can work through them as we go. So Cynthia, I'm going to start with you real quick. So can you talk to us a little bit about direct to consumer versus distribution model? What are you focusing on and what's the distribution of sales there?
Yeah, so the e-commerce is stronger at this point. It's about 65% of our revenue. We love it because it introduces many people to our products where we don't have traditional distribution. You know, the 3-tier system in America is very challenging for small producers such as myself, and e-commerce has really made it so that we can increase our sales, increase our awareness, and then go to distributors and have a much better argument for them to bring us and onboard us.
Great. And then where are you producing your spirits? Is that going to
Everything's made in
move with you?
California.
Okay.
No, I'm planning on made in California is a big part of our marketing campaign. And so we're keeping everything made in California right now. And that's the
Great.
plan going forward.
Sounds
Especially
good.
with the ingredients, the high quality ingredients that we use, we really need to source that locally.
Should you try to keep most things local?
Yes.
Great. I'm going through some of the questions here. I know there were a couple for Troy. Troy, can you talk a little bit about the number of employees you have today and your hiring plans for the future?
Yep, we have, 23 full-time employees right now. Roughly half of that are engineers. And as we get more customer contracts, as well as the big JV deal, we plan to scale up substantially in 2025. But not much this year because we're, as I mentioned, the 6-torch machine, we're about to fire it up in 2 weeks. It's going to take, 2 or 3 months of testing before we really are ready to deploy that out into the field. So probably the hiring will commence in first quarter of next year.
Very cool. And then a follow-up to that is, will you be able to eventually dig tunnels big enough for transportation? Things like, tunnels for cars to drive in, uniting different land masses, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually talking to a few potential partners and investors, very big companies, about connecting North America to Europe and Australia to Singapore, and crazy ideas. We've bored through basalt quickly, which is one of the hardest rocks and the most common rock under the ocean. But yes, we have a design for an 8-meter, which is 26-foot diameter tunnel, and a preliminary design for that, as well as 10 and 15-meter diameters, which would be great for 2, 3, 4-lane highways or train systems.
Very cool. And then one other question here. So beyond the joint venture, what kinds of other potential customers have you talked to so far, and what kind of response have you been seeing?
Yeah,
Can I jump in on one, Troy?
Oh, yeah, please, Phil, go for it.
So I head up corporate development and work closely with Troy on working on commercialization. And we have a local utility whose mandate is to underground 10,000 miles in the state because of fire and other hazards that you may know of in Northern California. And so we're working closely with them, scoping out vault projects. And number one, because they need to put their electrical equipment in hard rock in Northern California and their fire regions. And they really are working closely with us and very excited about what we can do. And as we do that, then we will be able to pivot and move into the tunneling side and the combination will be very exciting. We think there's a lot of business to do just with utilities in that. We've had conversations with other utility companies as well. So very excited about that part of it because it will really help with just generating our business going forward.
Yeah, I'd say our top 3 customers that we're talking to with 4 potential contracts that we're negotiating right now would be utilities, like Phil just said. They seem to be pretty excited. Data centers who need, power from various sources, and the third would be solar and wind producers who are stuck and need to get their power to the marketplace with a gen-tie or a new transmission line.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. We have another question coming in from the crowd for Power Hero. Where have you been test building setups to use your EV? Sorry, where have you been? You tested kind of the building setup for EVs?
Well, we haven't. That's the whole reason for the crowdfunding is we're raising money for commercialization. But we do have interest from 3 cities, and one of our board members is Kurt Pringle, and Kurt is very well versed in city development because he was a 2-time mayor for Anaheim, city of Anaheim, and he was a former speaker of the California State Assembly. So he was really responsible for getting us into these 3 cities that want to do trials with us. But that's the whole purpose of crowdfunding, is to get raise the funds for commercialization. But our strategy is that we will introduce products that we just like AirQ, even though we haven't completely completed the funding, because we are always on the move, so we're introducing and growing incrementally as we can. So that's what I mean by prudent cash management. Even though we don't have all the funding we need, it doesn't mean that we stand still. That's why we're able to get 10 patents, for example.
And Esmond, with AirQ, it sounds like that's a product that can help people find charging, not just for EVs, but for anything. So is Power Hero kind of envisioning itself as a charging anything company, or is this just a stepping stone to really focus on EVs?
Well, you hit it on the head, because that is the PowerNet ecosystem. And in my last slide, I had to rush to it, but we want people to be able to find energy anywhere, anytime, and because the EVs is not going to be the only zero emission vehicle. There's always going to be hydrogen, and we were talking to Toyota because I'm interested in the hydrogen program too, and so there'll be other kinds of vehicles that's technology that's going to be in play, and we want to be able to source and find all these. I'm sure you've experienced this. When your phone runs out, you have a charger, but there's no place to plug it in because you don't know where they are. It could be around the corner. It could be on a column, but someone knows. So just like Open Table, where people find restaurants that nobody knows about and they want to share it. So that's what we envision, is that by making it just like a Waze grew very quickly because it got the drivers to contribute, navigation tips. So we want people to contribute where they find power. It could be anywhere and everywhere.
I've had that problem in many an airport.
Exactly.
Sure. I've got one more question here for Cash. If any investors have any last minute questions, throw them in right now. We got about 5 minutes before we wrap up. Eli, you had mentioned something in your presentation about AI, which I know is a hot topic right now. How does Cash combat against the idea that AI might be able to replicate a hand in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, I can't disclose a lot of IP related information there, but I can tell you one of the things that we use, for example, is called the analysis of first generation footage that is sourcing from a camera module. So what happens when fraudsters steal any video about your hand or a picture about your hand, they try to do a playback attack. In the community of cybersecurity, we call that a playback attack. And playback attacks normally are done by using another device and another camera module that is capturing a video that has been already shot. So normally what that means, they're gonna do a secondary or a second generation video capture, and that actually can be detected using our technology. So we're able to tell if this video footage was captured from a first generation footage or it is a second generation footage. If it's a second generation footage, it's going to be rejected.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Appreciate the explanation.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. I think that's all we have time for this evening. Thanks everyone who attended or anyone who's watching this recording. We appreciate you taking the time to hear from these companies. They all could use your support. Each of these companies is trying to raise capital to build their technologies, to go to market, and all of these companies are trying to change the world in their own way. So if anyone is interested in learning more about these companies, you can go to netcapital.com. All 4 are raising capital currently. You can go to their Netcapital pages. You can ask additional questions of the entrepreneurs on the discussion boards. And of course, you can always make an investment if it's right for you. This recording, if you're watching live, will be posted on Netcapital socials and on YouTube. We'll also send a recording out to everyone who signed up. So we hope you all enjoyed. Thanks again, Troy, Eli, Esmond, and Cynthia, Phil, Ron. Really appreciate you all taking the time out of your very busy schedules to meet with us and talk to our investors.
Thanks,
everybody.
Rob.
Thanks, everybody.
you.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.